Welcome back to the podcast this week, and it's great to have you here again. And this week, I'm going to be doing something a bit different. As we're here in the Christmas New Year period, I thought it would be good for you to hear an interview from one of my team. And normally it's me doing the questions and asking people lots of information, but I've turned it a bit role reversal. And Abigail Morris, who's my head of marketing at James White Sales Success, is going to do the interview and ask me some questions around this year and what's happened and some sales thoughts. So, Abby, over to you.
Hi, so it's all very different for me. I normally am the person behind the camera. So yeah, all different for me. So I've loved listening to the podcast this year, and there have been so many guests on, as well as some really valuable sales tips. So what one do you think, James, would be your favourite? Let's dive straight in. What one of the whole year that you've recorded, there's been so many, would be your favourite?
Well, that's a really good question. It's a really tough one to ask because I've had so many different great guests on. I think for me personally, when I interviewed Louise Brogan, I thought she was a real inspiration to me because as someone that's a content creator, Louise, started her YouTube channel around 10 to 12 years ago, and sometimes that journey is potentially quite a challenging one because you do a lot of work and sometimes don't see the results for it. So hearing Louise talk about how she's sort of her sweet spot in audiences, in LinkedIn and been able to do LinkedIn effectively and see how her channel has grown quickly grown over time. It was a good inspiration for me. I've also interviewed some brilliant people. So Glenn Poulos was a great sales veteran as well. Great conversation with Glenn. Bradley Hatchett was great in terms of talking about networking. I'm not sure if I interviewed Billy Samoa this year, but whether it was last year, Billy was this year as well. Felicity J. So I've had some brilliant podcast guests, and I've got a few more to come as well, actually, of people that I want to have great conversations with. So I've learned so much from them. And I guess that's the bit for me, as well as for listeners like yourself and for other people listening. It's what can we learn from these great people that have achieved so many things in their life. So some great. It's hard to pick one, but if there's one that sticks to mind, it's Louise's story, and I think what she's doing. If you're not following Louise, have a look at Louise Brogan on LinkedIn. She's got a great offer in there, especially about how to use that to generate business opportunities and become visible on LinkedIn. So.
Yeah, and that's great. And I personally resonated with an episode you did with Alex Siri, because obviously, as you know, I changed my career, was qualified as a teacher, and then changed and now work as in marketing. And I really resonated how he was a police officer, and then he's completely changed now into what he's doing. And he also talks about challenges that he faced. So what was something that was a key takeaway from that podcast with Alex that we can tell listeners?
Well, I guess with Alex's story, Alex is a good friend of mine and someone that has been through some tough times. And he shared on that podcast, if you haven't listened to the podcast, he shared some very, very open elements around what happened in his life with his mum and his dad when he was very young. And I guess what I take from that is inspiration that even though you have tough moments, and we're all quite lucky, we're certainly quite lucky in the sense that we have good close family around us and people that love us and support us. And when you haven't got that, I take incredible inspiration that someone's able to basically decide to take action on their own life. A lot of people could be very much, it's life, this is the hand that I've been dealt and I can just be a bit of a bum and get on with it. But he decided to change that, and he's just had a baby now. And I know he's very keen on making sure his new son is brought up in a way that he never had. So I guess I take a huge amount of inspiration from that. But also challenges do happen in life. I think one of the things that, as you know, I'm a personal fan of is challenging myself on a regular basis. I do challenges. One of the annoying things for me this year that I haven't done is I haven't done a challenge. Normally I do my 110-100 challenge or some other form of biking challenge, and I haven't done one this year, and that's actually been a real frustration for me. So next year I'm going to change that and put something in place that we can aim for. But I think the reality is learn to accept that days are going to be good and days are going to be bad. Even the biggest, richest people in the world have good days and bad days. So don't let them control you. Accept that it's part of the journey, and accept that sometimes going through the tough times makes you stronger at the end of it.
No, definitely. And then what's that a guest this year that's made you look at sort of things that you're doing within your business, or made you reflect on maybe your sales approach or a business approach that you sort of listened to when you were talking to them and thought, I maybe will implement that in what I'm doing?
Was there a guest that I've had that's made me implement that within what I'm doing? Go back to obviously what I talked about with Louise. A lot of Louise's ideas and suggestions for things I think were really, really, really useful. I think in terms of, implementing think there's no one in particular that, I've obviously, as a career in business, you learn stuff from lots and lots of different people. And I guess for me, it's not just the guests I have on the podcast, but it's the books I listen to, and read and listen to in the car. And it's the conversations and, webinars and things I have. I had a great conversation with a guy called Neil O'Grady the other day, who is, I joined a course called Unignorable this year. And I invested in that, which was all about how to make posts and content that you create much more, basically more people to see them. And I thought it was really interesting to hear Neil's thoughts on how he wasn't a podcast interview. I'd love to get him on the podcast. But it was just really interesting to get his thoughts on marketing and how to be visible. And I guess that's the one thing I've taken from this year, is that my mission and my aim is to help and support people and help, those that are in looking to sell to get better results. And we've got to extend that reach. We've got to grow that reach. We've got to become more visible. So, that for me probably wasn't a podcast interview, but it was a course that I did that was really powerful, that enabled me to think, right, actually, if I want to make the impact I want to help as many people as I can, then I've got to make what I do more people aware of it. And that's down to, making the content I create, have much more pull.
Amazing. So then if I was a listener listening to this podcast for the first time, what would be one episode that you would tell them to go back and have listened to across your whole? And there's so many that you've done, so this might be quite difficult to choose from. But if you had to pick, I know for me, if I had to pick one of the podcasts I would tell somebody to go and listen to, I would maybe look at your reason why, like the episode that you did all about why, because I think that's so important. Even in my job, we have to look at why do we do this? Why do we get up in the morning? And that probably was a really powerful episode. But you did all about that. So that'd be the one that I would tell somebody to go and listen to. What would be your one?
That's really, you're asking some tough questions today, I tell you. It's so hard to pick one, I think, episode. I think, for me, I definitely think that, I agree with you, the why episode is important. You've got to find that reason as to, what's cooking you inside to make you want to get up in the morning. I always call it the duvet chuck. What's the reason for getting out of bed in the morning? And if you haven't got that reason, and for people, sometimes it's family, or it's loved ones, or it's people, sometimes it's people that have told you. I was watching a great video the other day of a golfer, and someone, he was motivated by people telling him he couldn't do it. Everyone said he wouldn't do it, he couldn't do it, he wasn't going to achieve the success, and he did it. So I think that there's so many different elements in there. I guess all of them I try and share in the podcast all different stories of what has been successful in my career and what I've used. I guess the one that I think is probably, I'm not sure which episode it is specifically, we'll try and link it into, is and there's one skill that as I notice and as I go around and I train and work with people, that's so important than anything else, it's emotional intelligence. And there was one I did around I think is one I've done around emotional sales intelligence, and how the ability to really understand people and to understand and have the ability to, be self-aware and to spot situations and to have self-control and have real empathy. When I sort of think about it and I look at people that are failing or not getting the success they want, a lot of the time it's because they haven't got their skills. And I think they're the most critical skills you can have, not just in selling, but in business and in life. If you aren't self-aware, if you aren't a bit reflective of what's going on, if you can't have that motivation to get up and get in the morning, if you can't build relationships with people, if you don't have empathy with other people, not just your work life, but your personal social life is going to be more challenging. So if there's one thing that I notice as a skill that I'd love people to develop more, and I'm trying to help them develop more, is that emotional intelligence.
No, that's brilliant. And that's so important as well. So then I was listening the other day actually to some of the episodes, and was listening to one that you did with Bradley Hatchett, mentioned him earlier, and he's the founder of Network My Club. And I found it really interesting when he was talking about at the beginning, when he was setting up a team, he found it really hard to let people do things without hand-holding and being too involved. And I think that's probably so many people can resonate with that. I can, especially as sort of a marketing manager, but sometimes it is really hard to relinquish that control and trust your team. I know you have a lot of trust in your team and your team is growing, which is amazing. But how would you sort of respond to that, and what advice would you give on that sort of issue that he was talking about?
Yeah, look, I guess the key thing around trust is two things. Firstly, it's about setting some clear values and metrics and guidelines really to work with. I think the key thing when you've got a team is set the bar high at what you want and what your standards are. If your standards are high, be clear about that in your interview process firstly before you hire people. and be clear about what your values are and what you stand for. So in our business, we've got 5, which are, passion, respect, quality, accountability, and learning. Those are the 5 values that I'm, really critical for me and the people that I bring on board. I want to have those skills. So I think for me, those are really, really critical things. I guess the other thing that is, it's also linked a little bit into what we do as a business. And that's, I talk to lots of CEOs and founders and salespeople and business owners, and the challenge they've got is a lot of information's in their head. So they've got a lot of information that's in their head, and the problem is, it's in their head, they can't then scale because you can only do so much in the time. So I guess one of the key things to think about is how do you build the systems and structures that says, okay, how do people perform a task? So let's take, for example, we've just, brought on board a media marketing executive, and we want them to go out and do some outreach for us to find speaking opportunities for me, which is one of the things that we're looking to do in 2025. So the question is, we need to give that person a process and an element to follow that says, do this, these 7 steps, do these 7 steps in this way. And that's where businesses tend to fail, is because they don't have that process. They sort of say to people, well, go on and do it the way you want to. And then what happens is people go on and do it the way they want to. It doesn't work. And then you get inconsistency. So if you think about what we do as sales blueprints, we create sales blueprints and we say to people, right, follow this process, follow this step. And I think that's probably the key thing that I would say, is to make sure that you've got really good values and what you expect from people. Have some clear KPIs and objectives of what you want that person to achieve, and hold them to account for that, and make sure that they can achieve those things. And then give them the systems and tools on how you want it done, but also encourage them then to learn and develop and try and amend those. So I guess those would be the things for me that are critical if you want to grow and scale on what you do. But I guess that the other final point of it also is your vision. So the vision and the mission of the business is key. So I call it the North Star. For us at James White, it's sales success. It's all around helping business owners achieve, financial freedom and be able to sell more. That's our big mission, and we want to help people do that so they can have better time with their loved ones. That's my North Star. Whenever I'm thinking about something, it's like, no, is it going to achieve that? So have that North Star in your mind about what it is you want to achieve, and try and make sure everyone follows that.
No, definitely. And what Ben Bradley was saying along that as well is that, and I know you are very passionate about this as well, is hiring people in your team that are better than you, hire people in your team that know more than you. And I know sometimes people probably find that a little bit daunting, because you feel that if you're sort of management, or you're the CEO or business owner, that you need to be the person who knows everything. And actually, it's not a weakness and that's something I'm learning too, but it's not a weakness to have people that are better than you and know more than you. You need to use that to your strengths to be able to grow. And I think that's something I took out about podcasts. I know that's something you talk about a lot, but you need to really utilize your team and hire people who actually are better for you. Don't be scared of that.
100%. And it's a real issue in management, if I'm honest with you. A lot of people in management in companies, like try and control people because they feel, if that person's doing better, knowing more than me, then they're going to make me, look bad. Where I think it's the opposite. I think if you let that team flourish, they'll make you look good. And, I think a lot of that is down to insecurity. If I'm honest with you, people manage people in a way that controls them and doesn't let them flourish because they're insecure about their own role and their own position. They may not like to admit that, but that's the reality. So yeah, look, I'm a big believer in employing people that are better than me if they've got skills and knowledge. I don't know it all, and I'm very happy to bring other people in that can focus in certain areas and share certain knowledge and insights that can help us achieve and grow. And I think if culture is one of those things in business that's a difficult thing to create, but it's so important. And if you've got that culture and letting people be free to do what they want with it, with some guidelines, but enabling them to develop and build their knowledge and their skills so they can bring ideas to the table, then you're going to be able to develop, especially as we go into the next few years, as we approach 2025, when AI and technology and other tools are going to come through to do stuff. We've got to be certainly aware of that and be on board. And I'm certainly, that's why I've appointed lots of young people in my team that have got talent and knowledge to be able to then go and find out where we need to go and see if we can head in that direction.
That's brilliant. And it's funny you mentioned AI. You have actually done a whole podcast on AI, which we'll link in the description. But what would be your thoughts on it? I know lots of people sort of say, is it going to take over our jobs? Is it going to take over sales? We're going to become the new salespeople? Is that going to replace salespeople's jobs? What would your sort of thoughts be on that? Do you think that is the way that it's going to go? Do you think AI will eventually replace salespeople?
That's a really good question. And I've got a real sort of a bit unique sort of view on this at the moment. I mean, like I've sent a recording the other day of an AI robot that does sales call conversations. And I did a video this year, a small video on how I was contacted by someone that was an AI robot on the phone. So look, there's no doubt, what's been achieved this year in AI is going to grow and get bigger in 2025. So we can't, and there's going to be more companies and more things that are created as a result of that. I guess my message to anyone listening to this is if you're in a role that's very, for want of a better phrase, standard and very basic, then AI is probably going to replace you in time. Not replace you, but you're going to get threats. There's going to be threats to your role from an AI robot coming in because that person can work 24/7 and doesn't have holidays and sickness issues and all that sort of stuff. I guess the question for me is around the nuances around, especially in selling. I think it's the nuances around being able to understand conversations. And I think there's going to be two camps. So I think in 2025, you're going to get a lot of companies that go down the automated route to create, do lead nurturing and developing and trying to find leads. And if I'm honest with you, there's a lot of shit there. If I'm honest with you, I see a lot of it. And I'm going to actually do a post on 3 or 4 emails that come through that just look automated and look crap. Or there's going to be more the personalized sense where you're able, you're not going to be able to get a robot right now to look at a prospect in a certain company and look at what they've done, look at their social feeds and then build a bit of a thought process around who that person is and what their situation could be. And I think that approach is not going to be replaced by robots for some time. And that's where I think, if you want to prospect and do business, know your target audience, have a list of, a couple of hundred of these people, and then be personalized in the way in which you engage with them, not just through, AI. And that's how you can generate business and opportunities. So I think that's probably going to be the route that people are going to take. I'm certainly going to be encouraging people to take, rather than necessarily just, going down the AI route. But there will be some companies that try it. The experience I found is when you start to ask questions that are off-piste. So, if it's all in one line, it's okay for the robot. But when you start to ask questions that are a bit different, they don't know how to respond. And that, to me, makes you look a bit silly.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. So then, it's been a really exciting year on the podcast. It has so many different episodes. But what can listeners expect from Diary of a Sales Expert for the upcoming year in 2025? What can we expect to hear?
Wow, that's a great point. So firstly, definitely more interview guests. I'm looking to get a wide range of guests on board. So for example, we've got sports people, we've got business people, we've got people that are just inspirations for me in terms of what they've done and how they've done it. One of the episodes I've absolutely loved doing, I'm not sure if it's this year or last year, was Gary McKee, who, I always share the story about, he ran 365 marathons in 365 days in 2023. And the interview I did with Gary was just, such a humble man. Listen to that episode if you haven't. We'll put a link into it. It's such a brilliant episode of how a man that's just sort of dedicated to achieving something made something happen. So we'll definitely want more guests. I guess I also want, one of the things that I really enjoyed is I had a message from a couple of people on social media. So if you're not connected with me on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn. And a couple of people have said, I've got this specific sales problem. And one of the big beautiful things that I love doing was actually, it was someone that said to me, I've got this particular issue. Can you help me with it? And I was like, yeah, cool. I'll do a specific episode on that. And then I had someone else that reached out to me and said, I listened to that. Can you help me with this query? So I guess I'm saying to you is if you're listening to this podcast, reach out to me, put it in the comments section, drop an email to us at hello@jameswhite.business. Reach out to any of our team. If there's a specific sales issue, query, problem that you've got, tell us. Because I want the podcast to be valuable and help people with the queries they've got day to day. And sometimes it's easier to answer those things in a podcast than it is on an email or in a post. So yeah, if you've got a particular query or sales related or there's a challenge you're facing, let me know and we'll make sure we cover it as well. So yeah, and also just to talk about lots of things that I know as being the critical things to help people get results. Like I said, the emotional intelligence thing I think is one thing that we're also going to continue to focus on as well. So lots of great subjects, lots of great guests. We're going to continue just to share insights that can help people achieve. So that's our plan.
Amazing. And do you think there are any sales trends that you think are going to shape 2025 and how can businesses prepare for that? Like I know like in my role in marketing, I already start looking at how stuff like TikToks, I think is still going to continue to grow. And there's other elements that are going to sort of really take off in 2025 from a marketing point. From a sales perspective, what is there any sort of sales trends that you think people need to kind of be prepared for?
Yeah, I guess the one main trend I guess I would say is that is people don't have the, if you look at how TikTok is growing, it's growing because people are, they're getting used, they're getting used to flicking with their phone quite quickly. If they see something they like, they're going to just bin away from it quite quickly. So definitely, it's not just a trend for 2025, but it's a sales, basic really, which is you've got to be relevant to people. So a lot of the time, a lot of people start sending stuff out and it's not relevant. So it goes back to the point I mentioned about being able to be personalized and engage with someone in a way that's going to resonate for them. And a lot of people just send out stuff. I get, for example, I get loads of people sending me LinkedIn requests, messages saying, I see you're the founder at James White Sales Success. And it's like, well, my name's James White and my company's called James White. That's like a lazy, in my opinion, form of marketing. It's like, of course I'm the founder at James White Sales Success. Who else would be? So that's a lazy form of marketing. And I think what I would say is, people's attention spans are limited, and they are going to be in a position where they're going to want to know, can you add value to them? Can you create some curiosity? Can you create a hook in their mind that's going to make them think this could be quite useful? And if you're in a sales role, you don't expect that to generate business and opportunity straight away, but your job is to create a narrative and a story that makes people think, okay, this could be interesting. What is this company and what do they do? Generally, people don't like to be sold to initially. They need to be in a position where they build some thought process around who is this company, what do they do, and how do they do it. And I certainly know when I've seen, I was sent a message from someone the other day, and I thought, okay, let me have a look at their company. And I went to go look at the URL for their email address onto their website, and the website had a problem. I was like, right, well, that's going to make me think no. So I think make sure that you align what you do from a sales and marketing perspective together to ensure that what you send out looks consistent with who you are. People are going to search on you. I always ask people to do this thing, search your name. I mean, my name is James White, but I added the sales bit to it because there's an American NFL footballer and a theologian who, are very well popular in America. So if you search James White, you'll get those guys. If you search James White sales, you'll get me and my details. So, search your name and see what happens and see what comes up, because, I think it's going to be more, especially with AI and tools like that, they're going to capture more information on who people are. And I guess the other key thing for me that I do think is critical is building a brand, a personal brand. What is it you stand for? When people see you, I want people to know when they think of me in a business environment, they think sales. Okay, and I think I'm doing an okay job at building that up. But what's the one or two words you want people to think about when they see you? People's attention spans are limited, so just try and maybe focus on one or two. The human brain only has the ability to, and we see 12,000 messages a day, and we remember 80 and we act upon 3 or 4. So the reality is, people get lots of information is being consumed day to day in what they do. So how are they going to make sure, how do you ensure you stand out is probably the key thing I'd say for 2025 as a company and also as a sales business person.
Definitely. So just a couple more questions. And this is one that I always find funny. And I think I see lots on different memes and things like that. But there's always sort of this rivalry. And I thought, well, obviously I'm marketing, your sales, but people always say that there's sort of that rivalry between sales and marketing, and lots of people sort of say, oh, sales blame marketing, marketing blames sales. And you do find that. And I'm sure when you work with sales teams and marketing teams, but you probably find that. And what would be your one bit of advice? I know it's almost like that funny sort of sibling rivalry between them. And I think it is really important that you work together, and we're really lucky in our business that marketing and sales, but it isn't that rivalry. It does all work really well, because I think it is important. So what would be sort of your advice for teams, or if somebody's listening to this who works in marketing and thinks, oh, I blame sales, or somebody who works in sales, oh, it's all marketing's fault? What would be your advice there?
Well, the honest answer is this: if the numbers don't get brought in, if sales don't get brought in, you're all going to be in trouble. So the reality is, sales makes the till ring. If you don't make the tills ring, then you're all in trouble. So it's like anything else. It's like I say in our business, we can have all the marketing people and the sales people that we want, but if we don't bring leads and convert business and generate income, then we're not going anywhere. So I think the reality is you understand that it's a bit like a football team. You've got, you've all, it's the midfield, defence and the striker. You've all got different people involved in the process. Respect each one's role for one. The defence's job is to stop generally that, in football, the ball from the goal from goals from being scored. Traditionally, it's the forward's job to be able to put the ball in the net. That doesn't mean to say that other people can't help in those areas. Defenders can score goals, but the reality is know each other's job and respect each other's job, but also link it into a core vision and a core plan. So one of the things I talk about a lot of the time is people don't have a clear plan for what they want to achieve from a business growth perspective. And that's one of the things that we do, really well, is help people go, okay, if you want to get from, let's say you want to get from this place here, which is, I don't know, £2 million to £2.5 million or £3 million next year. How is that going to work? How is that going to happen? What is the marketing part of the process that's going to generate these leads, and how can that turn into, business with salespeople then following up on that? So, have a coherent plan, work out at what part in the process does the we talk about MQLs, marketing qualified leads, turn into sales qualified leads. At what part of the process does one turn to the other? And invariably, I mean, some of the work that I'm doing with clients right now, the challenges occur as well, because there's different people that they focus on. So marketing focuses on this group and sales want this group. Well, have that clarity together, come together and say, who's our ideal customer? Who are we trying to target? Where are they? Where can we find the information from those people? How can we get personalized and create value from them? As you know, in our sales plans, we talk about making sure that, if you've got an identification of an audience, that you create great content that engages with that audience and creates value for them. That to me is a pivotal part of it. So build a consistent plan between the two. Accept that you're part of the same team. If you go back to that football analogy, if you lose, you lose, right? At the end of the day, chances are the team gets split up. So, you've got to make sales happen, respect each other's role, and also have those values of decency and understand that you're not a perfect person just because you're in sales. You may know sales, but you may not necessarily know marketing. So respect your colleagues, but have that coordinated plan to work together in a clear, group of people to engage with. And yet again, we have a sales plan course. Come on our sales plan course, and you can work out, bring your sales and marketing team together on that, and you can work out how to make that happen.
Amazing. So there are just literally 2 questions left. If you could only give one piece of sales advice for the rest of your life, what would it be? If you could only give but one bit of advice, what would it be?
Ask better questions.
Brilliant. Actually, I like it's actually 3 questions. So then what was your favourite sales related book or resource that you've discovered this year?
I think there's one that specifically springs to mind that I've listened to. I'll have to have a look at. You're going to make me look at my Audible list now and actually work out what books. I sometimes forget what I've actually had on my list at the moment. So let's have a look. Actually, to be fair, I was listening to the 5 AM Club was really interesting for me. Actually, I listened to a book called The 5 AM Club by Robin Sharma. And the bit I liked around that is about taking control of your own time. And one of the things I don't think a lot of salespeople do or business people do is they let time control them rather than taking control of their own time. So I think that was a really good one. And I think that was a really useful one to have. The other one, I guess, that I also, if I think back to books this year that I've done, and I did a brilliant podcast interview with her, was Melina Palmer, What Your Customer Wants and Can't Tell You. And Melina, I think, is an incredible lady. She's a behavioural expert, a behavioural economics expert, someone that really understands how the brain people think. And I think her behavioural economics is going to grow and grow as more people get short of time. We're going to need to get better at getting hacks to engage with people. And so I think, that was definitely, that's an area I'm geeking out on more and more, is understanding people science and what goes on and how people do what they do. And I think that's definitely an area that I would say is one that caught my mind. It comes to mind that I think is going to be really important again for 2025.
And then final question from me. If you could interview any guests for your podcast, Diary of a Sales Expert, who would it be? Who would you interview? If I said you can interview anybody you want to.
I mean, if I could interview anyone, who would I want to interview?
There's so many people.
There are so many people, I guess. I'll put it out there. I'll do this. Jeb Blount is I'd say I wouldn't say he's a hero. He's a modern day hero of mine. In some cases, he's written some incredible books. I think he's a great sales leader. I think he's built a great, solid, really great business. So I guess from a sales perspective, I'm going to give you 2. I guess Jeb Blount would be someone that I think is someone that has done an incredible job, and I'd love to get him on the podcast as a sales guru. I guess actually I'll give you 3. I'd love to have interviewed, and he's not here anymore, Zig Ziglar. I think Zig Ziglar would have been a great guest just to understand, how he, achieved what he did, and from a sales perspective. On a personal note, who would I like to interview? As you know, I'm a big fan of cricket and golf. Golf definitely for me is one of those things that I love And Tiger Woods, I think, would be an incredible one. I'm going to say this for Alex Seary as well, because he's a big Tiger fan. He's just called his son actually Brooks Tiger Seary, which
amazing.
I don't mean to name as Tiger, but I would say Tiger Woods, just to learn more about his life, and obviously he's led a very public life, but I'd love to ask him some questions around some of the challenging times and how he's overcome those and what he did to. There's a man that can't walk in the street without people chasing him and stuff. So I probably want to interview maybe as a golf fan, Tiger Woods as well.
Brilliant.
Well, there you go. That's it. That's the last question. So that's this week's episode of the podcast. As I say, coming out over the Christmas and New Year period. Hope you found that interesting. A bit different. It's me, Abby, asking me some questions. Abby does a great job as our marketing manager and with her team to grow and help us build. So reach out to her. We'll connect you. We'll put our details on LinkedIn. If you haven't connected with both of us, then please do. But that's the podcast this week. I hope you've enjoyed it. And again, I just want to give you a big thanks to everyone that's listened to it. We've had an incredible year with the podcast. I think we're up to over 10,000 downloads now in totals, which is amazing. And it's been a true inspiration for me that I'm able to help people and support people and get them the result they want. And I truly hope that what we're doing here is helping you as a business person or salesperson achieve the success you want to. So let us know what you'd like to hear. Let us know what the comments in subject areas you'd like us to cover in the podcast. We're going to carry on. We're going to continue doing more. We're going to continue more video to make 2025 really successful for everyone. So I guess that just leaves me to say, wishing you a successful end to the year, guys, and we'll see you in 2025.